guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Evan Thomas of ASMR Money Mentor. Welcome to the end of the week. This is episode 101. I hope you had a really good week, and I hope you've been learning a lot this week about asking yourself those 3 questions that I talked about a couple days ago. Do you know what to do, or do you know how much money you've got coming in? Do you know how much you've got going out? Do you know how to know what to do with your money in the year that you're in? And do you have the capacity to do that over multiple years? Because, as I said, I think you guys are all going to do really well with money. Remember my trigger of the week, the crystal. Does that grab the light? I think it does. Yeah, I think you guys are going to do great. If you're not doing great already, many of you are, I'm sure. So before we get started, I just want to talk through. Remember, you can email me at evanthomasbroke@yahoo.com. I talked about before, in 2025, I would like to really get into doing more case studies, which means you write into the show. You tell me what you've got going on with your money, and I do have one in process right now. Thank you very much. So you can look forward to that. I'm working on it as we speak, and I plan to roll out those episodes hopefully in October, where I talk through the case study of someone that's doing really great things with money. And I know, again, many of you are doing great things as well. So if you just want to write into the show, write a bunch of paragraphs about, maybe what your net worth is, what your age is, if you've got debt, if you have properties, and then I can share those details with people, like how much money you're making, etc. And I'm gonna base today's episode in a little bit of a way on what I would want from you guys if you do write into the show, because I want to hear from you in terms of, again, how much money you're making, what struggles you've had maybe with money through the years, or if you wanted some type of advice as a money coach, not a financial advisor. I don't, of course, talk about what mutual funds to go into. You guys can figure that out on your own, or talk to a financial advisor as a fee-based person, maybe if you just need some advice. But most of us can figure out what mutual funds to go into. It's not that difficult. As I said before, mutual funds are well diversified in and of themselves through Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, etc. It's more important to put your money into those mutual funds, because that's where people don't do what they're supposed to do. They instead choose to obsess over what types of mutual funds to put their money into, and then they don't do it. Okay, so I don't want you to be one of those people. I want you to pick something that's well diversified and put your money there and forget about it. Because building your wealth is, like we talked about last time, a very slow journey. It's not about what mutual funds you put your money into. It's about doing it, and doing it consistently. So today, I might call this Show Me the Money. Remember that? Show Me the Money. For those of you that are new, if you go back and watch episodes 1 through 62, towards the end of those, where I documented, from 2005 all the way to 2024, what I was doing throughout the year with money, I started doing the Show Me the Money episode on Friday, which I shared with you guys how much money I had and what my was at the end of every year, because I find it so interesting that looking back, it was always so exhilarating to see that my net worth would be increasing every single year, and that in and of itself was very motivating. So, what I want to talk about today, as I shared with you just briefly, is for those of you that are just learning about money, like, how do you think about, after you go through those questions I talked about on the previous episodes, how do you build a budget? And I'm just gonna kind of ramble about it. I have another episode where you can watch more details about this concept, but let's keep it simple. Keep it simple, savor, kiss. Maybe I'll put that up in the thumbnail. Which reminds me, should I do a thumbnail? Let's see. Yeah, maybe I'll use that, I don't know. But keep it simple, savor. Most people say keep it simple, stupid, but this is keep it simple, savor. So, I'm also going to tell you how much money I was making, because I think a lot of people are wondering. They ask me questions about it, like, I've shared with you guys what my net worth was every year, but I want you to know how much money, what was the range of income that I had over these years. Because somebody also asked me on the channel just recently, like, how did I save all this money? And I think what he was getting at, I still have to answer that question, which I'll do later today. But what I want to say to that is, I really wasn't making a lot of money. I'll share that with you. But it's what I did with the money that I had that was more significant in building wealth. But, last week, of course, I was talking about the 15 years from my subscriber in Belgium that asked the question about, can you go into more details about the survival years? So this week, I wanted to focus in this episode more about the 15 years that I did really well, right? So you got the bad years over here, let's say. Then you got the good 15 years-ish, somewhere in there, that I did really well. And that really began, as you may know, from watching previous episodes in 2005. I do want to share with you again that my real financial awareness came in October of 2003. I had just bought this condo. It was a very significant time in my life, and you guys will have these moments as well if you have not had them already. And in 2003, I got the job that I'm with, in the company that I'm with right now. Believe it or not, I've been in the same department for 20 years. The previous 6 years I was in a different department, but I've been in the same group for 20 years. And that happened in 2003 when a VP at the company came to me and told me, Evan, your job is eliminated because we had a layoff. 100 people were let go. And I guess, as I've shared with you before, they valued me as an employee, so they said, your job is eliminated, but we want you over here. And I said, okay, sign me up. Oh, there's travel involved. I live by the airport. That's great. No worries. And this person saved my job, and it ended up being a wonderful career of steady increases over those 20 years that I built wealth. So really in 2005 then, it started in 2003 I should say. 2004 it was kind of like, I gotta get this personal finance stuff figured out. In October of 2003 I was in Seattle, Washington in the Space Needle looking out over Mount Rainier. I sat there for about an hour as it kept turning and I kept looking at the mountains. And I knew I had finally landed a job with a company that would probably treat me really well after multiple years of just surviving. So I knew I was positioned for success if I played my cards right going forward, and that means do a good job, arrive early, be the problem solver and not the problem. And so that's what I did. And I flew back process. In 2004, I was really coming into my own, if you will. Do you ever have years like that where you can look back and say, wow, this is when I really flipped a switch and I became, different, or I became the person that I wanted to be? And so that happened in 2004. I was feeling good about myself. I had a good job. I was getting this condo all the way I wanted it. I was feeling very powerful. And then in early 2005, I'm watching TV. I'm flipping through the channels. I go to CNBC, and I find the Susie Orman Show. And I decided, as I've shared with you, to make that the catalyst to move forward. So I don't want to go into those details again, but just to recap that. So 2005, I bought her book, and I really see that as the beginning of the journey from surviving to thriving. So 2005, 6, 7, 8, the Great Recession comes into play, and then we're at the bottom of the market, just like Indiana Jones during the Great Depression in 1936 in my role play. If you have not seen that, you can go back and watch it. You want to be positioned where you're at the bottom of the market, and so I just rode that wave up. Now, to put this into perspective for you guys, we don't know what will happen, as I always say, but you can't change that. You can't change it. You can't change it. So, you should be hoping for dips in the market, as I also always say, because that's when, if you're starting to invest, you're buying the shares when they're priced really low. So, all you can do right now is position yourself for 2025, and we'll see what happens. I'll be here talking and rambling about money, and I will walk you through what I'm doing, although I will be retired, of course, but I'm going to share with you what I'm doing and what maybe perhaps younger people could be doing with their money as well. But to get back to the content of today's episode then, 2005 was really then the birth of that person that I wanted to become. It took until 2020, as I said in the last episode, that I then became financially independent, but I decided, as you know, to continue on for, 4 more years? 21, 22, 23, 24, yeah. And I'm officially now quitting my job, if you don't know that, at the end of 2024. So 2025 will be my first year in retirement at the age of 58. So let me end today's episode by sharing with you what I alluded to earlier in this episode. Is a lot of times people ask me, they're like, Evan, how much money were you really making from your job? Like, one person said, like, I know you're doing good things with money, etc. You're putting it where it needs to be, and you have that awareness, but how much were you really making during those years? And I can tell you this, I remember back in 2005, I was making about $38,000 a year. I was making about $40,000 a year in 2006 when I turned 40. So that's why in my role play, remember Indiana Jones was turning 40, so that's my own past. I got to 40 and I was still broke. If you guys are a lot younger, you want to start doing this much earlier than I did, right? So my story, my history will never change, just like your history and your story will never change. It is what it is. And when I was 40 years old, I was broke. I was broke at 40. And that journey then began. So, to end this episode, to put into perspective, and I know we have to talk about, 2006 was a long time ago. So we have to consider that now it's 2024, going into 2025. I don't know how much money you're making, but you really have to stop and say, this is my reality, this is where I am, this is how much money I'm making. But for me, it was $40,000. Then in 2007, it was $43,000. I increase my salary in the department that I'm in every single year about 3 to 5% per year. So to put that into perspective, $40,000 I was making in 2006. Today, and that's including a bonus, I make about $120,000. So from 40 to 120 took 20 years. they're smart with what they're doing with their money. If they're buying homes, that's great because homes tend to increase value. So yeah, most of them are probably doing really great. But on that show, they're not showing you the people that live down the street from you, that may live in suburbia and have a home that they can barely afford, right? They might be making $60,000 a year, 70, and they have this big house. And they're filling it with things that they put on credit cards, like antiques and all sorts of furniture. Yeah. Big difference when you think about it. So, to end today's episode then, I just wanted to share then with you that that was my range of salary money in those years. So it is possible, just to end this episode, to build wealth. It's possible to build wealth with a average income. It doesn't take hundreds and thousands of dollars per year to build wealth. Again, you just need to know those three things that I talked about last week. And to end with this, two things. Number one, you have to find a job that every year will give you that little bit more money. That's critical. This won't happen if you don't do that. So it might be that some of you have to hustle out there and get a better job, right? The other thing is market returns. We don't know what markets are going to do. I got lucky because I was positioned in a place when the market was down significantly during the Great Recession, and then I just rode that wave up. So those are the things that we have to think about as we go into 2025. For you, if you're building wealth, you'll be thinking a little bit differently than how I will be thinking, because I will be in the distribution phase of my wealth building, or my life, I should say, and you perhaps could still be in the accumulation phase. But thank you so much for joining me. I will be sharing more with you in 2025 as far as what I will be doing, and I would like to increase, as I mentioned, those case studies as well. So thank you so much for joining me, everybody. If you like content like this, please give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it.